You didn't change your shirt. And you've got stains all over it. You did that on purpose?
Yep. Welcome back, everyone, to Monday. I am wearing the same shirt as on Friday just to please Janelle. If you didn't catch that, you got to watch Friday's video. We are going to continue on sharing with you what stood out to us and why in St Alphonsus Liguori's Lenten sermons. Thanks for being here.
Every sin produces blindness, and as sin increases, so does the sinner's blindness increase. I think this is definitely true. And I've seen it in my own life. You know, the more and the deeper I've gotten into sin, sometimes I just didn't even notice after a while, right? And it's kind of like the whole idea, I think, of like stinky diapers. If I'm in a room with stinky diapers, at first I really notice. And then after a while, I don't really notice the stinky diapers. It's only when you leave and then you come back and you're like, whoa, it stinks in here.
The sin is worse than that. Mm-hmm. It ruins our life. It destroys our life. And people do not realize that they're in the midst of that. They're blind to it. Mm-hmm. Jesus said, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. We need to ask God for the purity of heart so that we can see the condition our soul is in so that we can respond to Him. Mm-hmm. That's really a gift. That's really a gift. And so we should ask God for that.
According to St. Augustine, when no resistance is made to a habit, it becomes a necessity. And as St. Bernardine adds, habit is changed into nature. Hence, as it is necessary for a man to breathe, so to habitual sinners who have made themselves slaves of sin, it appears almost necessary that they must sin. I have used the expression slaves. There are servants who serve for pay, but slaves serve by force and without pay. To this do some poor wretches come, who at last sin without pleasure.
St. Alphonsus says, habits change into nature. So here's a very important question I want you to ask. What are your decisions doing to you? Who are you becoming as a result of your decisions? A very important consideration, because our decisions turn into habits. And then our habits shape our character, our nature. They shape who we are. So it's very important to look at our lives and our habits and think, what is this doing to me? And our habits, he says, almost become like necessities. Mm-hmm. And isn't that true? It's like we almost can't do without our habits. But again, we look at, well, what is that doing to us? Here's a painful look. But consider what's happened in the last year with COVID. How did you respond? And how did that response change you? Maybe it changed you for the better. Maybe it didn't. But this is a pretty big chapter in everyone's life, including the church's life. And very, very, very few people are looking back and thinking, okay, is what we did right? Is how I responded right? There's a huge lesson lost if we don't do that. And it's a huge lesson lost if the church does not do that. So what are the decisions that we have made over the last 2 years, and how did that, what did that do to us? Very important to consider. St. Anselm talks about the habits like they form a string on a bird. And this bird wants to take off and fly, but all of a sudden the string kicks in and the bird's brought down back to the earth. So the bird can soar to a certain extent, but it's limited in how far it can go. And that's what our vices do. They limit us. It might seem like we're living a pretty good, functional, spiritual life, but in reality, we're actually limited. So I was thinking about this in one way. When you have these vices in your life, those strings, it's a safe life. It's safe because it's predictable. It's not safe because our soul is safe. That's not what I mean. I mean it's a life filled with negative habits. Vice is a very safe life. because it's very, very predictable. Take, for example, somebody who has the vice of a certain type of addictions, maybe with lust, with gambling, with alcohol, with shopping. It's very predictable behavior. So the bird only flies so far. But what happens all of a sudden if that bird broke free from that? Well, then, can you imagine? In one sense, it's not safe because now one is free to ask the question, Lord, how do you want me to live? Where do you want me to go? How do you want me to serve? What if somebody struggles with anxiety and fear? Very safe, very predictable life. The bird only goes so far out and comes right back down. What happens if you let God break that string? Well, now that person is free and they can ask, Lord, how do you want me to think? Where do you want me to go? Such a beautiful life. I wouldn't call it a safe life because when you fall into the hands of God, it's not safe. He will cause you to do things that maybe you wouldn't otherwise want to do, but it's a tremendously fulfilling life. A safe life, you want to call it predictable, you stay in sin. Very predictable. Down to the earth and down further once you die. Very predictable. God has something much more beautiful than that. He wants us to be free. And to be free to love Him and to serve Him and to soar to great heights in union with Him. That is the fulfilling life. Doesn't mean it's always, quote, safe, because it's not always predictable, but it's beautiful.
That reminds me of the Chronicles of Narnia. You know, at one point, I think it's Lucy, she asks Mr. and Mrs. Beaver about Aslan.
Yeah.
Is he safe? And then Mr. Beaver says something like, I never said he was safe, but he's good.
But he's good. Mm-hmm.
That your quote was actually my last quote. But I did have a question because we're talking about habitual sin. How does one break habitual sin?
Yeah.
Because he actually kind of gets pretty hard on people with habitual sin and says you kind of have no hope. But I think that, no. But there is hope.
There is
so
hope.
How do we break habitual sin? I think our first line of defense is always confession, bringing light into the dark areas of our life. And then I was just kind of thinking in my mind, what else? Maybe having a spiritual director, maybe having prayer, even fasting. Like, have we ever practiced fasting in order to break some of our habitual sins?
Yeah, so regular prayer. We're talking daily prayer, regular sacramental life, Mass every Sunday, minimum, and in confession regularly. If you got caught in habitual sin that's really serious, well, you go as often as you need to go, like once a month, sometimes more often. A devotion to Our Lady.
Yes.
I mean, fasting and avoiding the occasion of sin. I would say surrounding, you need community too for some, depending on what that is. But there's always hope. But if we are not putting any effort into doing these things, don't expect the bird to soar. We done?
Done.
All right, friends, thanks for listening to us today. Please share with us below what stood out to you and why in the comments. We'll serve you again right around the corner. I promise to wear another shirt. And thanks for watching.
Do you think we should ever comment on the fact that Father Cristino's in some of the videos? Or like tomorrow we'll have Father Cristino?
No, tomorrow is what?
It's Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
Father Cristino's always Thursdays?
Yeah.